Welcome everyone to our webinar today at FlexFunds. As a service provider, we work with asset managers around the world, offering them investment vehicles to launch or enhance their funds through a European securitization program. On this webinar, we'll be discussing FlexFunds investment solutions as a more efficient alternative to other traditional vehicles. My name is Alex Contreras, and I'm the head of business development here at FlexFunds. I'm based in Miami, Florida, where our headquarters are located. Now, let's get into our discussion. What do we mean by having a more efficient vehicles than the traditional alternatives? Here, I would like to mention some examples of traditional fund structures and also how they evolve over time. For this, I'd like to split them into private funds and the European regulated vehicles. They can be good options, but aren't always a right fit for different strategies and can carry some inefficiencies. The most common on the private funds are the Cayman, like the SPCs, the segregated portfolio companies, as you're probably familiar with the master structure on top and the cells underneath. They can be used for alternatives and also for some tradable strategies. Then we have some of the corps in the US and the BVI vehicles. Now, on the European regulated funds, we have the well-known UCITS, which can be good as well, but they can be more expensive and take a while to set up. We have the CCAV, we have the AIFMD vehicles, and also the commonly used and known Luxembourg structures. Many of the vehicles have some similarities, which is access through manual subscriptions or share purchases using traditional contracts, as well as having slow KYC procedures for the investors. In addition, they present high setup and ongoing costs. These are some of the items that we focus on improving here at FlexFunds. But we'll talk more about this in the next few slides. So we have several offerings, but I want to cover our main offering in order to compare with the alternatives, what we call the FlexPortfolio. Now let's talk about the FlexPortfolio in more detail. The FlexPortfolio securitizes a portfolio of publicly traded assets used at interactive brokers as execution and custody platform. In other words, the portfolio manager performs a strategy in one trading account, and based on that performance and NAV, there is a tradable security issued by our solution with an ISIN, listed in a major European exchange and in Bloomberg. Here, the investors are able to participate by buying the securities that represent that strategy from their existing brokerage accounts globally. Now, let's go over some of the key advantages and applications for the FlexPortfolio solution. Number one, efficient subscription through Euroclear. Here, the investors participate or buy into the strategy through a trade from their accounts, as opposed to a private subscription or a share purchase. Two, flexible portfolio composition. Here, the portfolio manager will have access to do all the rebalancing and the composition of the underlying portfolio and strategy. Three, cost efficient, and this is very important, especially when compared to some of the European alternatives like the UCITS and some of the Luxembourg alternatives, because the setup costs could be very low, and in some cases could be no setup cost. And then the ongoing maintenance costs as well is more competitive and much lower than those other alternatives. Trading and custody platform with available leverage. As mentioned, we partnered up with interactive brokers, and they're gladly to offer leverage in most of their strategies. And five, actively managed by a portfolio manager. What do I mean by this? The portfolio manager has access 24/7 to the account and to place direct trades into this account without having to go through a third party or another entity during particular business hours or different time zones. Now let's talk about some of the applications. Global distribution of a strategy. As mentioned, besides your book of clients, basically any investor with access to Euroclear through the trading account can participate into the FlexPortfolio strategy. To centralized managed account. What do I mean by this? So instead of having to manage individual accounts for the same strategy, all gets managed under one account with interactive brokers, and anyone that wants to participate into this account would simply have to buy a note or buy a ticket that represents this account at that particular NAV in time to be able to participate in that strategy. And lastly, fund creation alternative. This is also very important, especially for this product, because on the Flex portfolio, we offer a turnkey solution us along with our service providers to make sure that you're covered from the beginning to the end. So you don't have to go and engage on third-party providers individually. We give you the full package so you can get your strategy up and running and accept investments into that account. So these are some of the main advantages and applications for the Flex portfolio. Now, what I like to do to give you more of an idea is do a side-by-side comparison into the private funds, the European regulated funds, and the Flex portfolio to make sure that we have a clear understanding. So let's go through some of the main points. Available to brokers. The private funds and some of the Europeans, sometimes they're available to brokers, but not always, as opposed to the Flex portfolio, which is always available to brokers. Here it's important to mention that even though some of the private and the European regulated funds could be available to brokers, it could be challenging to register these strategies into their platforms because of the way they're constructed and the vehicles they use. 2, time to market, very important. The privates and the European, typically very slow. It could take a few months to get them up and running. The Flex portfolio, we're talking about 6 to 8 weeks. And in some cases, it could be even less to have you from the first time we start working with you to be able to launch your strategy and have your ISIN ready to be traded. Then cost, obviously, cost is very important for all of us. The privates are mediumly expensive, but the Europeans tend to have high costs, not only to set up, but the ongoing maintenance, especially, again, the usage and the locks vehicles. The Flex portfolio in particular have really reasonable and low cost. Euroclear eligible. This goes hand in hand with the point that I made to available to brokers. Private funds and Europeans, sometimes the Flex portfolio, it is always Euroclear eligible. Listed private funds, typically not listed. The European regulated funds sometimes, but the Flex portfolio is always listed, which is not only good for trading, but also it brings some other benefits, such as, depending on the jurisdiction, some fiscal benefits, as well as it could allow some allocators that on their mandate, they can only buy or invest into listed securities or listed products. Well, they would fall into that category. Actively managed, they are all actively managed. However, the Flex portfolio also ensures that the portfolio managers have direct access to the trading account. Max and min quantity of investors, very important. Many of the private funds have restrictions. Some of the Caribbean vehicles, for example, cap you into how many investors you can have into your vehicle. So that could be an issue, right? The European regulated funds typically don't have any restrictions, and the Flex portfolio certainly does not have them. You can have as many investors as you need to. And lastly here, purchases and subscription, very important. The private funds in the European could have more complex purchase procedures where you have to do different types of private share purchase agreements or subscription agreements that tend to take more time and work as opposed to a simple purchase of a note or a tradable security, which is the case of the Flex portfolio. But now, let's listen for a few seconds to the experience of one of our customers who has recently launched 2 Flex portfolios and get his own experience based on what I just mentioned.
Hi, this is Angel Ubeto from E2 Dynamics. Wanted to thank FlexFunds for the product. We had it up and running in less than 2 months. Great feedback from our clients, great feedback from financial institutions. We did our research. It's the best product out there. Thank you very much, FlexFunds, for everything.
Now, let's talk a bit more about FlexFunds as coordinating agent of the Flex portfolio. As you probably know by now, FlexFunds is a global asset securitization company, and we believe that securitization is the best solution for growing funds seeking distribution in multiple banking platforms. Let's talk about some of the numbers that we've accomplished in the past few years. Our portfolio managers have over $1.5 billion under administration. We have over 200 clients worldwide, most of them in the US and Latam, but also with presence in Europe, Middle East, and Asia. And we've done over 250 issuances in 30 countries. These are fantastic numbers. And this is due to some of the benefits that I want to touch on very quickly here on our next slide. So what makes the Flex portfolio and also all of the other solutions so attractive and better than these other alternative funds? One, speed and efficiency. As mentioned, we do our issuances or launch our products within 6 to 8 weeks, compared to some of the alternatives that could take months. Compliance, coverage. Compared to the private funds that have a heavy upfront KYC AML on the investor side, in the Flex portfolio and all solutions, the KYC AML requirements are covered by the investor's existing brokerage accounts, maintaining investors' confidentiality and making it easier for the portfolio manager. 3, global access. Investors can purchase this strategy from the global accounts as long as they have access to Euroclear. And also flexible uses. We spoke about a trading account, but also, as I will mention in a couple minutes, this vehicle also applies for other type of asset classes, such as some other private funds or even real estate. Then we also have an integrated administrator, especially in the Flex portfolio, in which we give you a turnkey solution with all the service providers as part of our vehicle, and direct reporting. This is more relating to the NAV that gets reported directly, not only to the account of the investors, but also to places like Bloomberg, Reuters, and the exchange. Now, I want to touch quickly on the multiple applications and who could benefit from the FlexFund solutions. Here we have number 1, the portfolio managers. I think we already talked about this on our Flex portfolio for on the centralized managed account. But also we can work with fund managers for hedge funds, private equity, and venture capital. Here what we do is we enhance their existing funds by securitizing such funds so they can be tradable with an ISIN and they can be distributed globally. We also work with real estate and alternative asset managers. And we do this for, especially in the real estate, for enhancement of real estate funds that look to be distributed globally, and also for equity or debt capital raised directly into the projects. And lastly, work with industrial corporations looking access for some debt markets, and family offices that need to or would like to securitize or package existing assets for their families and making it, among other things, more transferable. Just to give you a little more color about what we discussed, I want to show you how this looks on the portfolio manager side and on the investor side. So as you know, the solution has an ISIN and a Bloomberg page, providing more transparency and distribution. Here's an example of the Bloomberg page, something we're all familiar with, where you see the basic data, the name of the issuer, date of the issuance, the size of the issuance, as well as NAV pricing and the historical. Also, there's a series memorandum of prospectus that goes into the Bloomberg page of each of our products. Now, on the investor side, they will see this as a line item into their statement. They will have the name of the product along with the most recent NAV published for that particular product. So as you can see, this gives a lot of big of distribution power and clarity for each manager and for the investor. I think it's also important to talk about the service providers and the partners that we work with in our issuances. FlexFunds works alongside most of the most respected financial institutions to provide efficient, distributable, and cost-effective investment vehicles for your customized strategies. Let me mention some of the partners that we work with at the moment. On the operational side, we work with SEI, Creatio, Soho, and Moody's. On the audit side, work with Deloitte, Roberts and Nathan, and BDO. I'd like to mention here that this is an audit at the vehicle level, not at the strategy level. Then at the issuer level for legal and compliance, we work with A&L Goodbody and Mason Hayes & Curran. On the trustee, work with Intertrust and Apex. And also here, one difference with the other vehicles is that we have in all our vehicles the presence of a trustee on behalf and benefit of the investors. Then custodians on our tradable strategies. We work with Interactive Brokers as an execution and custody platform, as well as Bank of New York Mellon as a custodian only. And then exchanges. We work with the exchange in Vienna, the Wiener Börse, as one of the recognized exchanges in Europe. So here's some of our certified customers. They range from IRAs in the US to many other asset managers in LATAM, as well as in Europe. And always would like to thank them for their ongoing support and business. However, no one's better than our customers to convey the advantages they have experience with our solutions. And in this case, with our FlexPortfolio. Let's listen to another very relevant opinion from one of them.
Hi, I'm Alejandro Garza, founding partner of Aston Equity Management, also portfolio manager. Aston Equity Management is an investment management firm. We're a registered investment advisor, registered with the SEC. We're a regulated advisor. We started the firm 5 or 6 years ago, specializing in the small and mid-cap space. We manage strategies in the small and mid-cap space in developed markets. We have a strategy that does small and mid-caps across all developed markets globally. We have another strategy that does developed markets ex-US, also in the small and mid-cap space, and a third strategy in the small and mid-cap space in emerging markets. We started managing individual accounts and also a private offshore structured fund, Cayman-based. So we have the experience of managing both through individual accounts and private structures. And some 2 or 3 years ago, we wanted to expand our offering across our investor base, both in the US and in Mexico and globally as well. And in that search, we encountered FlexFunds. And once we started doing our research and getting in contact with the FlexFund team, we very quickly understood that this was a very efficient structure for enabling our strategies and helping us put forward our strategies to a broader investor base, and also to maximize efficiencies and have all our investors that are being managed through individual accounts through a single vehicle. So it became very obvious that it was very efficient from an operational point of view, also very cost effective from the point of view of establishing the vehicle and on an ongoing basis from an operational point of view. And for our strategies, it also allows us to access all global markets and have a full deployment of our strategies. So it's been a great experience for us. We've been able to expand our offering, our investor base, and hence to grow our AUMs and to continue to offer our strategies to a broader set of investors globally.
To conclude, are you ready to begin? Please get in touch with us to set up a personalized session to further go over the details of our great solutions. Please give us a call or contact us through the email in the screen. We will be happy to talk with you about our solutions and what's a good fit for you. Thank you for the time today, and see you soon.